Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello learners, welcome to TV learning program. I'm teacher AGGERY, a teacher of economics. Today I'm going to learn with Senior 5. And we are going to learn about Unit 4, which is consumption, saving, investment, and multipliers. And learners, we have completed consumption. Now we are going to deal with the concept of saving. Now, today we are going to learn about saving. Now, learners, what do you understand by saving? What is saving? What is to save? Who can define saving? What is meant by saving? Someone is telling us that saving, it is the proportion of the disposable income that is kept for future use. That is what we call saving. Now, saving refers to the proportion. Saving refers to the proportion of the disposable income that is kept for future use. That is kept for future use. Saving is that proportion of disposable income that is kept for future use. Learners, do you remember what you learned in Unit 2 in national income? You learned about disposable income. Who can tell us what is disposable income? What is disposable income? Thank you. Someone is telling us that disposable income, it is that amount of money that you remain with after taxes have been deducted. After taxes have been deducted. In order to get the disposable income, we get the personal income minus direct taxes. Now, saving, it is that part of the disposable income after taxes, that has not been consumed but has been put aside to be used in future. Now, an example, e.g., an example. Now, if my income is 100,000 francs, that is disposable income, the income that is after taxes. Now, if I earn 100,000 francs, that is the disposable income. Now, on 100,000 francs, I consume part of the income. On 100,000 francs, I'm going to consume 30,000 on 100,000 francs. I consume 30,000 francs. I'm going to use 30,000 francs on this total income of 100,000. Now, if I use 30,000 francs, that is the amount of money that will be spent on consumption. Learners, how much will I save? How much will I keep? Now, I will save 70,000 francs. Now, this amount of money that has not been spent on consumption is what we call saving. The 70,000 francs will be put aside to be used in future. Now, saving, it is that part of income, the part of the disposable income, or the proportion of the disposable income that has been put aside to be used in future. Income that has not been spent on consumption, but has been put aside to be used in future. That is what we call saving. Now, learners, after understanding the concept of saving, there are factors that relate to saving. There are factors that can affect the level of savings. Factors that can lead to high savings or low savings. And what could be those factors that lead to high savings or low savings? The relationship, the factors that relate to saving. Now, there is what we call a saving function. What we call a saving function. A saving function refers to the relationship. Between the level of saving between the level of saving between the level of saving and factors that affect savings, and factors that affect savings, and factors that affect savings. It can be expressed as, the saving function can be expressed as, it can be expressed as saving, which is S, is equal to function of CO, GP, Y, I, and FI, etc. Now, saving S depends on these factors. It depends on consumption. Saving is a function. It relates to consumption, government policy, income, which is Y, and I, which is interest, and financial institutions. Now, saving can be affected by these factors. Now, where S is savings, CO is consumption, Y is income, Y is the level of income, and I is interest, and FI, financial institutions. That is the saving function, which shows the relationship between saving and some of the factors that can affect savings. Now, saving is a function. It relates to consumption. Now, saving can be affected by consumption, or it can be affected by government policy. That is what we call the saving function. Now, learners, now what could be the factors that influence savings? What are the factors? Factors that influence the level of savings. 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 Now, we have been looking at the relationship between saving and some of the factors that affect the level of savings. Now, what could be the factors that affect or influence or determine the level of savings? Now, learners, what I want you to note, when we are explaining these factors, because now we are looking at the effect, which may be positive or negative. Now, we have to explain two sides. What leads to high savings and what leads to low savings. Now, one of the factors that affect the level of saving, learners, we have what we call the level of income. The level of income. The level of income. The level of income. The higher the level of income, 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 the higher the level of saving. The higher the saving, the higher the saving, and the lower the level of income, and the lower the level of income, and the lower the level of income, the lower the level of saving. 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 Now, income affects the level of saving. How does income affect the level of saving? Now, the higher the level of income, the higher the level of saving. And the lower the level of income, the lower the level of saving, keeping other factors constant. Now, an example, learners, I want we compare. Let's compare two people. Now, e.g., this is John. John earns an income of 600,000 francs per month. And Peter earns an income of 300,000 francs per month. Now, let's assume that they incur the same expenses. The expenses they incur per month is the same. Now, they incur an expense of 200,000 francs per month. That is an expense. Now, who will save more? Now, John will save more than Peter because John earns a high level of income. Because when you get 600, you subtract the expense, the expense incurred on consumption, he will keep 400,000. Why? Because he earns a high level of income. But now Peter, who earns less income, will save less. Because when you get 300 minus 200, Peter will remain with 100,000. That will be saved. Now, the level of income affects the level of saving. The higher the level of income, the higher the level of saving. And the lower the level of income, the lower the level of saving. Now, the second factor that affects the level of saving, the general price level. The general price level. The general price level. The general price level. The higher the general price level, the higher the general price level. The higher the general price level, the higher the general price level, the lower the level of saving. The lower the saving, the lower the saving, and the lower the price level, and the lower the price level, and the lower the price level, the lower the price level, the lower the saving, the lower the saving. Now, the general price level. Now, the general price level, if prices are high, if prices are increasing. Now, when prices are increasing, in case of an inflation, if there is an inflation, prices are increasing. There is a continuous rise in the general price level of goods and services. Now, when prices are increasing, money loses value. Money loses value when prices are increasing. Now, this will discourage people to save because money is losing value. Now, instead of people saving, because money cannot store value because of high prices. Now, instead of people saving, what will they do? They will decide to invest in assets that don't lose value, like land. Now, when the prices are low, money is gaining value when prices are reducing. Now, people will be encouraged to save. Now, when prices are increasing, people save less. And when prices are reducing, people will be encouraged to save because money is gaining value. And when prices are high, people spend more because goods are expensive. They will spend more and save less. But when prices are low, people spend less and they're able to save more. Now, the next factor, the level of interest. The level of interest offered by banks. Offered by banks. The higher the interest rate, the higher the interest rate offered by banks on deposits. Offered by banks on deposits. on deposits, the higher the saving. The higher the saving. And low rates and low rates and low rates and low rates, the lower the level of saving, the lower the saving, the lower the saving, the lower the saving. Now, learners, the level of interest offered by banks. Now, what is interest? Who can tell us? What is interest? Hope you learned about that in Senior 4, about production. Rewards of factors of production, learners. Now, what is interest? Thank you. Someone is telling us that an interest is a reward for the use of capital. Now, in this case, banks pay interest on those people who deposit money. Because what we call a deposit, learners, deposit, that is the act of keeping money in the bank. Now, when I have money and I take it to the bank to keep it, on my account, I'm depositing. That's why when you go to the bank, you fill what we call a deposit slip. Now, the level of interest. Now, those people who keep their money on saving accounts, all on fixed accounts, the bank pays them interest. There is a reward. Now, if the bank gives you an interest at the end of the month, take an example. If I'm keeping money in Bank of Kigali and I've opened a saving account where I'm depositing money, at the end of the month, the bank gives me an interest of 20,000. Every month, they add 20,000. They add 20,000. Now, whereby the amount of money will keep on accumulating, I will be encouraged to save because the banks give me an interest. There is a reward that is added on on the amount of money that I'm saving. Now, when the interest rates reduce, now the bank used to add 20,000 at the end of the month on my saving on the saved funds. Now, if the interest rates reduce from 20,000 to 5,000, now I will be discouraged to save. People will be discouraged to save because of low interest rates. Now, the next factor that affects the level of saving, the next factor that can affect the level of saving, the level of development of financial institutions. The level of development of financial institutions, the level of development, the level of development, the level of development, the level of development of financial institutions, of financial institutions. If many financial institutions, are set up, savings will be high. Savings will be high than when financial institutions are undeveloped. Than when financial institutions are undeveloped. Now, learners, the level of development of financial institutions. Now, financial institutions, those are institutions, organizations that deal in monetary transactions. Now, for example, like banks. Now, if in a country we have many banks that mobilize savings and people can access those banks, they will be encouraged to save more, which will increase the level of savings. But now, when we don't have, when there are few financial institutions, and people cannot access financial institutions, they will not be encouraged to save. which will reduce the level of saving. Savings will be low. Now, the next point, people's attitudes towards saving. People's attitude towards saving. People's attitude towards saving. If people's attitude towards saving is positive and in favor of saving, savings will be high. Savings will be high. Than when people's attitudes are negative. Now, attitude. If people's attitude towards saving is positive, the feeling of saving, they believe in savings, they will save more because they like saving, they believe in savings. But when your attitude towards saving is negative, you don't believe in saving, you don't like saving, you will save less. Now, the next point, the next factor that affects the level of saving, the consumption level, the level of consumption. Learners, do you remember what we learned about consumption? We said that consumption is the act of using a good or a service. Now, the higher the rate of consumption, 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 the lower the saving. The lower the level of saving, the lower the level of saving. And the lower the rate of consumption, and the lower the rate of consumption, and the lower the rate of consumption, the higher the saving. The higher the saving. The higher the saving. Now, learners, on the level of consumption, the higher the rate of consumption, we have said that consumption is the act of using a good or a service. Now, the higher the rate of consumption, now, people who prefer to consume in the present rather than in the future, they save less because they prefer consumption other than keeping their money to be used in the future. Now, this will lead to low savings. Then, when I prefer to consume in the future other than in the present, I will try to keep the amount of money to be used in the future. Now, I will try to consume less because I prefer consuming in the future rather than in the present. Now, the next factor is government policy. The government policy. The government policy. High taxes on people's income, high taxes on people's income leads to low savings. Leads to low savings. And low taxes leads to high savings. Leads to high savings. Leads to high savings. The government can encourage people to save or can discourage people to save. How can the government encourage people to save? Now, when the government charges high taxes on people's income, people will remain with less income and they will not be able to save more because of high taxes levied on people's income. But now, if the government wants to encourage people to save more, if the government wants to encourage people to save more, the government will reduce taxes on people's income. Now, when the government charges less taxes on people's income, people will remain with enough disposable income and people will be able to save more. That is the government policy. Now, learners, you can talk about the family size, the family size. A bigger size of the family reduces the level of savings, and a smaller size of the family increases the level of savings. Now, that is all about the factors that can influence the level of savings. Now, learners, I want to leave you with a homework. It is one question. After understanding the factors that influence savings, I want you to explain the factors that affect the level of savings in an economy. Remember well and note, when you're giving these factors, when you're trying to explain these factors, you explain two sides. What leads to high savings? What leads to low savings? Factors that affect savings. Now, learners, I hope that now you can be able to define saving and you can be able to explain the factors that influence savings. If you ask a question, factors which explain the factors, or assess the factors that determine or affect savings, we need you to explain two sides. You show the positive effect and the negative effect. That is how you're supposed to explain. Learners of Senior 5, thank you for being attentive. This has been an interesting topic about savings. And I encourage you to save. I encourage you to save in order to live better lives. Those who were able to save, they were able to cope up with the pandemic of COVID-19. And those who were not able to save, they suffered during the pandemic. Now I encourage you to save for better lives. Thank you for being attentive. Stay safe. We meet next time.